on air. So we're actually broadcasting right now, I believe. Is that true?
It says off air, Brian. Hey, Brian, I have no way to do a Facebook Live of this since I'm using my phone this time, so you don't lose my connection.
Well,
It says live on my screen.
I'm disappointed.
Now it is live.
John, I'm disappointed. So we're going to get this thing rolling right at 10 o'clock. We have a little bit of time. I have 9:45, so we've got about 15 minutes to spend just hanging out. But we went ahead and hit the live button. So we've already got some folks joining in. So hello, all the appraisers or users of appraisal services that are joining in. We appreciate you being here. We've got some great guests today, and we're excited about it. That's all I'm going to say right now with that, because I want to wait until we have more folks involved before we go crazy. So what's going on in everybody's world? Creighton, how's business?
Business has picked up. We've been pretty steady. We've got enough commercial work to keep all of us busy for a couple of weeks for sure. Been taking on some unique projects, conservation easements, highest and best use studies. I've got some litigation stuff that I'm trying to work on. Looking big picture, I'm licensed in a couple of states, so I'm trying to expand where I feel I'm geographically competent. On the residential side, we've been solid. I was mentioning to Jonathan earlier, I got FHA certified, so I've had that experience now. I may not ever do another one, but it's been interesting. But no, we're focused on growth. We're focused on making sure our clients are taken care of, providing the quality and the turn time that our clients want, and just making sure that we're doing the right thing. So,
very good, very good. And Mr. Jonathan, first of all, I would like to welcome you to this crazy thing we're going to do today. I want to thank you for being a willing participant. And, or I don't know, maybe Becky twisted your arm. I'm not sure. But,
my sister, who's my business is, my partners are my wife and my sister, over 30 years, and we actually get along. But one of my things my sister has always said is I've never met a microphone I didn't like. So I'm all yours.
I love it. Well, welcome. We're glad you're here. We've got more and more folks joining right now, and hello to all you appraisers dialing in. Believe it or not, we have several that are already watching, and they're here early. Typically, we as appraisers are late with everything, right? What's a deadline? And so, especially when it comes to our appraisal CE, we tend to wait till the very last minute. So welcome all the appraisers that are already on and watching. Our official start time is 10 o'clock. So you're a little early. We're glad you're here. Feel free to ask some questions if you like. And we're actually going to kick the webinar off right at 10 o'clock. But that's our start time. We've allocated an hour for the day. But I've got three amazing guests, and we've got a lot to talk about, some exciting things, and some exciting news. We want to make some announcements toward the end of this webinar. And so we may go over an hour, if that's okay with everyone. Finally, we've got John, and John looks a little, I don't know, like he's in a tunnel or something. But it's good to see you, John. What's going on in Bingman's world these days?
Oh, Brian, I have bronchitis, so timing is perfect. So I'm not going to be my normal jovial, jumping up and down, excited kind of personality, maybe. But I'm dealing with what Jonathan and Creighton, two really well recognized and spoken individuals that I'm not sure how did I get on this thing?
We were desperate, and we just kind of. There's one thing when you talk about radio broadcasting or television, it's called dead air. And so if we had a moment of dead air, we thought we'd just switch over to you, and you could kind of, really what you are, John, is a filler.
I thought I was the interpreter. So although Creighton is from your neck of the woods too, I thought it was so that I might be able to interpret.
Oh, is that what it is?
I told John this morning that people might not be able to or understand what I'm saying just due to the dialect. But thankfully, I think Brian and I are on the same level with dialect. So.
Yeah, so that, they don't talk redneck out on that part of the country, huh, John? Is that?
Well, I have a little bit of an advantage, although I'm in New York. I grew up in Delaware and Maryland, and I've got a little bit of I used to have a little bit of a drawl, but I can clearly understand it, so I can understand everything you're saying. So don't worry.
I always tell people just because I talk slow doesn't mean I think slow. So,
right.
There you go. I like your style. Well, again, we're approaching the 10 o'clock hour. We've got a few more minutes to kind of just relax and be silly. We are continuing to have other folks join in now, and for those that are watching, if you could just bear with us for about 10 minutes, we'll kick things off. We want to welcome you and thank you for being here. And we're going to entertain questions throughout the day, so feel free to ask your questions. We've actually got several questions already. People have written in advance asking some questions, and so we'll get to those once the broadcast starts. John, anything else exciting with on the national circuit? I know Creighton's got some exciting news for the Tennessee appraisers. They're going to love this. John, without telling all the secrets, is there anything going on that you want to share right now?
Well, nothing that I want the rest of the folks to hear about. Why you want to do that to folks? They're going to feel like they've been left out.
I'm just trying to hear you talk. I think you sound funny.
You're cute, Brian. That's why I love you.
I just thought I'd go ahead and punish you a little bit. So while our topic today is appraisers coming together, both at a state and national level, while we've got a few minutes to kill, let's just talk about something else for a minute. Up in New York, Jonathan, what are some of the challenges that the everyday appraiser faces in today's climate?
So as I was telling Creighton earlier, that in my 31-year career, I've never driven a car to an appraisal. And so we're at the mercy of public transportation in Manhattan. Now, I'm not counting cabs, but in terms of physically driving. But I think one of the biggest challenges in New York is 98% of the residential transactions are co-ops and condos. And in fact, co-ops outnumber condos 3-1. And we have to deal with doormen. We have to get through, people leave keys, they don't work. So access, even though we're not driving 30 miles to an appraisal, is really a challenge. And then the other big thing is a big part of the appraisal forms that we fill out, we're getting information from the management of the building, the various buildings. And New York, for being the financial capital of the world, is probably the most primitive real estate market in terms of information and data. It's very behind the times. So most of the information we get is very dirty, and we don't have an MLS in our market. And
nice.
Public record just came online about a decade ago for about 80% of the transactions, 75% of the transactions. So, it's definitely, there's a lot of detective work and all that. But so that's, every appraiser has challenges in their market. I'm sure many have many more challenges than me, but I find ours to be just getting actual information. There's just not much public record.
Okay, so I'm trying to get creative here. Thank you, Jonathan. That's pretty cool. You don't have to drive around town. I like that. I live in Chicago.
I can take a cab or Uber, take buses and subways. So that's the extent of my transportation.
And you carry your appraiser tool belt
Right.
on the train or right?
A lot of walking too. A lot of walking.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm trying to go live here on Appraiser e-learning little Facebook page, and it's kind of weird that I'm looking at myself. Not sure how if it's working at all. But if anyone's watching on Facebook, we are having a webinar about to begin here in just a few minutes. I knew what time it was. Yeah, so we're 5 minutes away, and that gives you plenty of time to jump over and find the link and join in. I've got some awesome folks going to be attending, and I've got some awesome folks that are going to be speaking. I got John Dingman, I've got Jonathan Miller out of New York, and over here just a little east of me, we have Mr. Creighton Cross. So we're excited about the team we've got together, and we're going to be talking about a lot of interesting things today with appraisers and why appraisers should come together. You know, it's funny that the majority of appraisers in this country consist of one or two-person firms, and they're not affiliated with any membership whatsoever. So we're excited about the opportunity to bring these folks together and talk about some issues. So let me get rid of this. I just can't multitask, guys.
Hey, Brian, I'm going to try to switch to my Mac.
Okay, we've got 4 minutes, so you knock yourself out. Again, we've got more and more folks coming in to watch the show. Yeah, John, I don't like that, whatever it is you're doing.
Oh, there we go.
Better?
Yeah, we can see you.
Are you back, John?
Perfect. If you can hear me, then this will work.
Yes, we can. All right,
I can hear you.
Although now we're looking at your face instead of your Adam's apple, so it's a little disorienting.
A lot of people do that, Jonathan. So it's all good.
Trying to learn how to use them, your Mac is sometimes a challenge.
Why you don't use Macs?
That's why you don't use a Mac?
Correct.
No. Max rule.
Okay.
Give this extra John Dingman in here.
So I'm off.
Good check. Is you went to a check? John Dingman. Great. All right, good.
All right, so we're getting real close to start time, and the viewers are continuing to increase. John, I don't know, are you multitasking? You got your Facebook Live going up as well?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Oh.
Is that a yes you do or no you don't?
No, I don't.
Oh, all right. So I'm just while we've got a couple of minutes before we officially start, I'm looking over some questions that have already been sent in to us, and we've got some really good questions. So I'm excited to get these. I'm excited to get going with some of these and ask some of these experts some of the questions. And we get some good questions, and some are just more statements. I'll go ahead and read a couple. Like here is one from Craig. It's not really a question, it's a statement. So I'll go ahead and read it. Craig writes in and says, state and national groups are vital to protecting the professionals engaged in the practice. So thank you, Craig, for that. We kind of agree with you on that. That's why we're here. Let's see. Sean. Again, this isn't really a question, but Sean types in and says, it's clear that it would be beneficial for us to join together, higher fees, standardization of processes, prevention of scope creep, keeping AMCs in order, et cetera, et cetera. That's Mr. Sean. I kind of like his style, I might say. So we've got about a minute before we officially start, guys. So grab your coffee, do whatever you need to do. We've got 1 minute, and we continue to get more and more folks dialing in. So when it comes 10 o'clock in less than 60 seconds, we're going to go ahead and start, regardless of the number of folks watching. It's going to continue to build, and we're thankful for all those that have already dialed in and are going to participate in this webinar. We're excited about the folks that we have here today, and we're excited about some of the conversation we're going to have, as well as some pretty big announcements. All right, guys, I don't know what time you have, but my clock says 10 o'clock. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Ben, Sam, if you need me, you come in, shake me up. That's typically what you have to do with me. Are we good to go?
Yeah, we're getting a little feedback. Is this on? No, this is muted.
Okay. Here we go, guys. I'd like to welcome everyone to our monthly webinar. My name is Brian Reynolds. I'm with Appraiser e-Learning. I'm excited to be here and excited to have you watching. I have some very special guests today. Mr. Creighton Cross, who is the president of the Tennessee Appraiser Coalition, is with us. I have Mr. Jonathan Miller out of New York, and we are excited that he's here with us. We're going to be talking about New York just formed an association, and so we want to get some information on that. And finally, we have Mr. John Dingman, who is president of the National Association of Appraisers. So we've got a good group of folks together, and I want to just give an opportunity in the order that I'll introduce for them to each say hi. And if there's anything unique or special about what you guys do, we're all appraisers, but if you appraise gold mines or something interesting, let the folks know. So Creighton, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Creighton Cross. I'm the chief appraiser and president of Braun & Associates in Knoxville, Tennessee. Founded in 1983, designated member MAI. We have about 8 appraisers in our office covering Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, and Georgia. We are kind of a generalist firm. We do a little bit of everything, but we're really trying to go down the litigation route, eminent domain, tax appeal, things of that nature. Really have appraisers kind of at my heart. Just want to do the right thing for the appraisers in the state of Tennessee and all appraisers. That's something that we definitely want to take care of. But other than that, I'm 36. I bought the company from David Braun, which I think he is hopefully watching this webinar today. David's a mentor of mine. Most people know David around the country, kind of instrumental in a lot of changes in our profession over the years. So that's me. Very thankful and blessed to be a part of the Tennessee Appraiser Coalition, doing everything we can to benefit all appraisers in the state of Tennessee. We've got a lot of people out there that we want to reach out and touch and help in some way to become, the quality appraisers that we can all be. So thank you for having me.
Great. And I'm excited that you're here, and we want to have a good conversation on some of the accomplishments that TAC has made, as you said, to benefit all appraisers in Tennessee, not just the members of TAC. TAC's done some really amazing things, and I'm glad you're here today so that appraisers can actually hear some of the exciting new changes that are favorable to the Tennessee appraisers. So thank you for being here. Mr. Jonathan Miller, go ahead and say hi to everyone, and go ahead and give a little quick bio of your.
Sure. Thanks, Brian. And it's such a pleasure to be participating in this and to be connected with Creighton and the group, John, and yourself and your organization. My firm, I'm the co-founder and president and CEO of Miller Samuel, which is based in New York. We were founded in 1986. My partners are my wife and my sister, so it's a family affair, so to speak. My firm has, in addition to our residential side or commercial side, we have about 25 employees. All my employees, about 2/3 of those are appraisers, and all my appraisers are salaried staff appraisers. We don't have any fee appraisers in our shop. We are a very big into I'm getting crazy feedback here. We are getting a. Can you hear that? I can't even hear myself think.
Yeah, we got you. Ben, are you there?
Jonathan, I'll call you. Creighton, Brian, and Jonathan, and I'll get Jonathan's audio.
Thank you. So, Jonathan, we'll come back to you in just a second.
Okay.
Actually, I heard you great, Ben.
Actually, the feedback seems to have gone away. No, it's back.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll reach out to you. We'll get that squared away. I apologize.
Okay,
for
great.
that. John, go ahead and let everyone know who you are and what's going on in your world.
My name is John Dingman. I am the current president of the National Association of Appraisers, president of the Coalition of Arizona Appraisers. And right now I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, but I'm happy to be here with everybody and discuss why it's important for you to join any organization, especially your state, and share with you the news from the National Association of Appraisers. We had a
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so without telling everything that happened, tell the viewers what a busy week means. Where were you and how were you there?
A busy week means we were at the
I'm here.
Board of Trustees meeting through the Appraisal Foundation last week. It was in West Palm Beach. Not a bad place to be, although I didn't see much other than the hotel area meetings going on at that time. Obviously the Board of Trustees meeting was there. The North American Conference of Appraisal Organizations had their annual meeting, and the NAA also had one of our meetings there as well. We took advantage of the fact that all of our board members were there, including Tim Anderson, who physically lives there and resides in West Palm Beach. And so we had our meeting, the NAA board meeting as well. And so it was 3 or 4 days. It seemed like 4, but it's probably 3 days of meetings all day long and listening to the pursuits and endeavors and trials and tribulations of each of the appraisal organizations within NACO. And for those of you that don't know what NACO is, North American Conference of Appraisal Organizations, literally in one room you had the likes of Jim Amarin and Fred Groove from the Appraisal Institute there. You had Mike Evans from the ASA, Dave Doring from NAFA, Ron Worth from IAAO, et cetera. You had Keith Lancaster, AI Canada was there. Obviously, the folks here at the NAA were there as well. Just really an impressive room to just sit in on if you could just be a fly in the wall, right?
Yeah, and a lot of things got done, and I know I'm aware of some of those, and I know John is holding back on some of these announcements. And John's excited, I am too. And I think appraisers around this region will actually be excited to hear some of the news that we're going to share with you a little later on in this broadcast. So let's go ahead and get started. I know Jonathan is still having some technical issues, and we're trying to get those resolved. We'd like to apologize for that. We test these things out in advance, and inevitably something's, a squirrel's going to run up a wire or something's going to happen. So we'll go ahead and proceed, and Jonathan will be back with us here momentarily. So we've got representation today from the Tennessee Appraisal Coalition, from a new association in New York, and John is with the NAA. And I'd like to just kind of get all of your take. And John, you were also involved with a state association for a while. Isn't that right? Arizona, I believe?
Correct.
Okay. So John not only has experience as the president of the National Association of Appraisers, he also has experience with a local state association. So let me ask you a question, guys, and I'll let each one of you or whoever wants to take this, take it. For all the appraisers out there watching now, or those that will be watching this recorded video a little later, why? I mean, why should an appraiser join a state association? Why should they join a national association? I mean, what is the value to an appraiser in joining one of these associations?
I don't know. You want me to start, Creighton?
Go ahead.
You know, Brian, I'm probably the newest guy in the whole bunch, obviously, to our profession. And I'm going to assimilate this to a charitable organization that I ended up serving as president for in Arizona, and it was for kids. Somehow I ended up in a leadership role around the room, and I couldn't understand for the life of me what the heck I was doing there. Probably the same when I got involved with the Coalition of Arizona Appraisers. But one of the things that I recognize is each of us as individuals, whether we're serving in a leadership role or we're just participating in the group, different and something valuable to the table. It's a different perspective, whether it's a thinking outside the box kind of thought process, whatever it is. At the end of the day, we all believe in the same thing, and we're all looking for the same thing, and that is to advance our profession and to be treated as professionals. And I just think if you don't participate in one of the groups, whether it's in particularly your state group, and then take that forward and just jump to the national level, I think it's very hard. It's a kind of akin to not voting, right? If you're not voting, it's very hard to voice your gripes, I guess, as opposed to at least participating in the system. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Mr. Miller,
Yes.
I think you're back with us now. Is that right?
I think I am. Can you guys hear me? I'm sorry about that.
I can hear you, and I do not hear an echo.
Perfect.
Great. I had a microphone issue.
Yeah. So, Jonathan, New York, I'm told, is really kind of just coming together. They have an association now, and you're welcome to shout the name of that from the mountaintops. And so you're trying, I assume, to get New York appraisers to come together. So if I'm sitting in New York and I'm an appraiser, why should I do that? I mean, what benefit to me as a hardworking 14-hour-a-day appraiser, what benefit is it to me to join your association?
So, I think one of the characteristics of the appraisal profession, I've been appraising for over 30 years. My colleagues online have been, although I'm noticeably older than Creighton, which is a little bit of a concern for me. I'm the median age of appraisers in the U.S. right now. I think one of the characteristics of our profession is that we've been very silent or quiet and have been sort of, I don't want to say victim, but through inaction, the world has sort of moved without us. And you can see things changing by the proliferation of state coalitions, for example. There's 26 or 27 grassroots coalitions that have sprung up. New York, as you mentioned, and YCAP, started by Becky Jones, who, that is people sort of taking charge. And one of the benefits of being involved is, if your livelihood depends on something, don't you really want to know what is in the works in the future, how the future shapes up? I'll give you an example. In 2005, I could see in my firm that within 3 years we were going to be out of business because we didn't fit the model of the whole sort of mortgage broker residential insanity that was going on that fueled the bubble. And I felt like we were going to go under in about 3 years. And so what I ended up doing as a firm, because I was very involved and could see what was happening, we basically fired a slew of clients and then serviced the good clients better and inverted our business away from depending on, wholesale sort of mortgage, heavy volume. And every year since then, it's been a great year for us simply because we could see the future, not, decades out, but just a few years down the road. And I really think, we're a profession I call us lone wolves. Like the majority appraisers are really, sole practitioners to have one partner, and it's hard to get, really what's going on in the world without connecting with people. And I feel like the coalitions have been a very successful offshoot of this need to be informed.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Mr. Creighton.
Yes, sir.
Why should I get involved with TAC? What's in it for me? And unfortunately, we shouldn't be thinking what's in it for me, but as a membership, they do need to provide some value to the appraiser. So why should a Tennessee appraiser get involved with your organization?
I believe a lot of what the other guys have said, plays true in Tennessee as well. We have just a variety of appraisers across the state of Tennessee. Looking over our mission statement at the Tennessee Appraiser Coalition, it talks specifically about a diverse group of appraisers. Something that has been said that I'll reiterate is often we're just a single person in our house working, and we don't have that outside influence. Often we don't have the information about what's coming down the pipe when it comes to legislation. If we have appraisers that are, out on their own and something comes up that may affect their business model down the road, they need to know about that. Our job as the Tennessee Appraiser Coalition is to be a voice for all appraisers. We just want to be there. We want to be able to set ourselves apart and offer up information and a talking point, a forum maybe, so that appraisers in our state have somebody to just go to ask questions. There's a lot of great forums out there. There's a lot of great organizations out there. And unfortunately, we often get caught up in work and we don't end up, reaching out for questions or something of that nature. I wrote down earlier, we all get too busy, and, we can all be guilty of that. I've got a ton of files sitting behind me that I need to work on right now, but it's very important that we come together and that we are able to inform our appraisers. And what all that comes back to is the basis behind why we're appraisers. We're here to protect the public trust. That's one of the things that we finish our mission statement with is monitoring political action with the intent to influence legislation, regulation, and the public opinion toward the appraisal profession. And so without groups like this, there's a lot of people doing great things, but this is, like you said, a grassroots opportunity. Our Appraisal Coalition has been around for 6 or 7 years, 2010, 2011, and they've gotten a lot of stuff accomplished in that short period of time that's really benefited the appraisers. We've been really cutting edge in the state of Tennessee. Those before me have been really cutting edge helping our appraisers in the state of Tennessee. So I think that's where we have a value add.
Great.
Can I just add one thought to that, Brian? Is that, I think what we've learned over the last couple of years, and New York is literally, the NYCAP is literally brand new. We're just getting going. We don't have the legacy of experience that Creighton has in his group. But what we're finding out is that we need to understand the legislation that's coming through, because a lot of times the legislation that's drafted is lobbied or pushed by a financial institution or somebody that is looking at it from their perspective. And what I'm finding now is that at least on the state level, the regulatory level, they're dying for appraiser input. Like, what's the real world practicality of this? And unless, you're connected to a small, a grassroots organization like, at a state level, a lot of times the appraiser's voice isn't heard. And what goes on in Tennessee is different than what goes on in New York, which is different than goes on in Arizona or California. So it's important to be very localized.
Right, I agree with that. Let me ask you.
Hey, Brian, let me just follow up, because those are some really great points that Jonathan and Creighton just made. And from West Virginia, popular appraiser across the country, and she's not on, but one of the things before WVCAP, which is the West Virginia group, formed, is they did not have an AMC law, and they were looking at trying to get in to visit with the legislatures and try to drive that mission of creating an AMC law that not only served the purpose of the federal mandate, but also represented the appraiser well, and was in the interest of the public trust, but also with the appraiser, right? Was not going to listen to an individual. They were looking for an organization to step forward. Now, that doesn't mean that an individual isn't going to walk in, but in representing the organization or a membership, for people in those membership also has some advantages. I mean, if you think about it, the Coalition of Arizona Appraisers, we have about 10% of the licensed appraisers are currently members of that organization, and that speaks volumes when you're visiting with a legislator and asking for some sort of change, and that there's some agreement. I would also say this, that sometimes I think I have the very, very best ideas that would advance our profession, or the very best ideas to advance my own personal agenda in my household, and I'll be reminded by my wife very kindly that it's not a great idea. And once that sounding board is utilized, you kind of take a step back and go, I guess it was a great idea, but maybe not so much. And that is where the interaction with your peers, after all, that is one of the things that we look for, is what do our peers do? And so when you're networking with your peers at your meetings, whatever they might be, either social activities, education, or otherwise, these ideas off of each other and really come to, through collaboration, how you'd like to move forward. And when we work together, we can figure out that, hey, you know, we might not win all of the things that we're asking for, right? We might not prevail in all areas, but we can prevail for the greater good.
Great. So let's get to some of these questions, if you don't mind. Here we go. Is there any focused unity or cooperation among the many groups to affect real benefits for boots on the ground appraisers? So, Creighton, I think that might be a good one for you. Tell us what TAC has recently accomplished for the Tennessee appraiser. I mean, this is really big news, guys.
It is big news, and we're extremely excited. First and foremost, I can't say that it was us alone. We had a lot of partnership with people throughout the state of Tennessee that helped us with this. But first, actually, Brian, you'd mentioned to me our work toward the renewal of appraiser license in the state of Tennessee. I actually looked up that amendment to the Tennessee Code. In 2014, the Appraisal Coalition was able to change the renewal and certification for appraisers in the state of Tennessee 30 days prior to the expiration date. That was just one of those things that was a burden on appraisers. It was very difficult sometimes for people to get all their education in quickly. So what happened was a lot of people were taking maybe education that wasn't helping them. So we were able to get that done in 2014. Moving forward, 2016, we had a banner year, so to speak, when it comes to legislation and some of the things that we were able to get done. TAC made 2 personal trips to the Appraisal Commission in Nashville, where we testified. The first trip was actually myself and 2016 President Wells Edie, and we asked for 3 things in that meeting. We asked for a customary and reasonable fee study to be done and paid for. We had support from a few organizations on that. We also asked for an administrative rule change on the appraisal complaints at the state level. It's an administrative rule. We also requested legislation for a statute of limitations. That was back in probably May or June of last year. Basically at that meeting, we did not have a lot of success, but we were there at the table with our voice being heard. So fast forward that, about 6 months later, back in October, November, myself, Bill Medley, who is a lifelong RWA guy. Billy has also been involved heavily with TAC. He does just a ton of work for us. And then Todd Rogers, he's the government relations for the Appraisal Institute chapter in Tennessee. He is also now our treasurer on the TAC board. The 3 of us showed up. We had a little bit more ammunition, so to speak. I'd worked with several appraisers in North Carolina who had just recently got the same liability statute of limitations passed. Roberta Ouellette, the legal counsel for North Carolina, was extremely helpful with the wording of that and some of the aspects of what was going on in North Carolina, how they actually approached the board. Basically, we took the customary and reasonable fee request off the table, and we went in with the administrative rule change and the statute of limitations request. Basically, we were met with great acceptance. We had great language that was able to make it through the administration side, and then with the help of Randy Button with Capital Strategies Group, that's our lobbyist in Tennessee. Randy is also an appraiser in the state of Tennessee, just an incredible guy. And his group, Capital Strategies Group, really hit the ground running, started making the contacts with the state legislator that we needed. They also were able to parlay some support and benefit from the Tennessee Association of Realtors on some of these liability changes, because the realtors here are also trying to get some liability changes. Then we had a lot of financial support, which is very important when we start lobbying. Something a lot of the appraisers don't understand is we can't just go and ask for this stuff to take place. We actually have to try to raise money. We raise capital. We have to pay people to actually help us lobby and to, you know, donate to campaigns. You know, there's parts of stuff that goes on in the legislature that I just don't understand. But, you know, years of LDAC in DC, I learned to lobby a little bit. We're just thankful we've got a good lobbying group. But AI came to the table with $10,000. TAC came to the table with $5,000. ASA came to the table with $2,000. The Chapter 32 right-of-way in the state of Tennessee came to the table with $1,000. The IFA came with money. We had a private donation from Pat McGuigan. Very thankful for that. And so we were able to raise enough money to get a lot of this changed. I actually have a copy of the bill in front of me. Basically, statute of limitations on civil and administrative claims takes place July 1st of this year. We were able to get that process speeded up.
So let me interrupt you right there.
Yeah.
So to summarize this and dumb it down for me and folks that like things real simple, you have a bill that has been signed into law.
Correct.
That will now, effective July the 1st of 2017, create a statute of limitations on appraisers being sued. Is that my understanding?
Correct. Civil liability.
And what is that time frame in which someone can sue from a civil standpoint an appraiser?
We still have a 1 year from discovery of the act of omission, but no event shall it exceed 5 years. As I'm reading this right now, so we have a 5-year window. Previously, the statute of limitations on civil liability was something ridiculous, 94 years. This was brought to our attention. David Braun actually came to us and he said, you know, I'm semi-retired, but I got to keep liability. If our appraisers want to retire, they have to keep a tail policy.
Right. So this is huge for the Tennessee appraiser. I mean, if you're a Tennessee appraiser, this is huge. We're talking that someone cannot sue you after a period of 5 years, and they can only sue you from a civil standpoint from a period of 1 year after discovery. This is extremely significant. What are the other items, Creighton, that have been passed that impact the Tennessee appraiser?
The next biggest event that I think went through was the complaint to the disciplinary board at the state commission. Actually, we went in, you know, thinking, you know, that should maybe follow USPAP, you know, the 5-year record keeping rule, that makes sense. But we were actually, with the help of our lobbyists, we were able to get that pushed down to 3 years after the complaint is submitted. So, you know, let's just take in, you know, consideration if we've got an older segment of appraisers that have turned a file in and someone down the road gets their hands on that and want to turn it into the state commission. Well, the state now cannot even review that file after 3 years. So on the state administrative level, from a complaint standpoint, we were able to protect our appraisers. And nothing worse than 8 years down the road, somebody happens to look at your appraisal and they don't like it and they complain.
And that happens. That absolutely happens. So now it's for a 3-year period for filing complaints.
Correct.
And then is there something else on that if they are, a complaint gets filed and they are disciplined? Was that on the bill as well?
I mean, I don't know the details to all that.
Okay.
They've tried adding language, but I'm not that familiar with that.
Okay. Well, these are very significant items that have taken place that really every Tennessee appraiser, if nothing else, ought to get involved with TAC for that very reason. And they probably ought to shout out a big thank you. Hey, I'm going to jump over to John Dingman. And can you answer Ian's question about, I mean, that's great for Tennessee, but how does that help Utah appraisers or Kentucky appraisers or New York appraisers? What can the NAA do to help all appraisers?
So it goes in two directions, Brian. And one of the things that that I would share with you is the NAA, we have in our bylaws what's called the Board of Governors. And so the Board of Governors consists of the state organizations and coalitions. And they can join the NAA as a Board of Governor, and we actually look for that. The founding members, who were 3 boots on the ground appraisers, an educator, and a bank appraiser, decided that there was no point in having 7 directors making the decisions for the whole of the membership, that we needed to seek the guidance from the states. And so the Board of Governors were formed there. The Board of Governors, where those states participate in all of our meetings, they may even have their own meetings and bring something forward. But they can work together on certain issues, and what works great for Creighton and Tennessee, or maybe Creighton can say, you know, we came up short in this area, bought on it, nobody bit, and we wish we would have done it this way. And another state, Utah, might say, you know, we actually had that, was not so much of an obstacle for us, and we used this language in the bill. Through that kind of collaboration, you can probably advance some of your state agendas for what worked in one place may work for you in another. In that means. The second thing is just leaning on the national organization to provide additional support, whether that's through contacting your state legislature or regulator, and or maybe the issue is so important in the state of New York, and the other states have not recognized this yet as an issue, something you carry forward and try to help all of the states with that type of legislation, whatever it is. And so there's got to be that give and take. And I mean, there's standardization in everything that we do primarily. And sometimes the struggles that we have, in particularly if you look at the Fannie Mae position on trainees, that's not easily solved. And Arizona is a great example, although we are trying to change that, and hopefully very soon. But Arizona has an extreme requirement that forces the supervisory appraiser to inspect 100% of the properties. So again, Fannie Mae may send out one message. It may work for one state. It may not for another. Wouldn't it be great if we all had the same kind of rules? And as we open up our legislation, we can take advantage of those opportunities and bring in some of the language from another state that does just that.
Well, from a standpoint of the National Association and the voice they have and the opportunity that they have to help all appraisers as opposed to state specific, talk about just briefly what they did when HUD announced they were updating their HUD handbook. I believe that the NAA wrote 27 recommendations to HUD on what they felt was important with that new release of the handbook. What happened when you sent 27 recommendations?
Well, so Brian, we have the opportunity, one, to leverage resources, right? So within the state organizations that participated, Board of Governors, and also some others, created an ad hoc committee. We took the time to review the 4150.2 and all of the mortgagee letters associated with it over time, and the draft of the handbook. And yes, you're correct. So we sent 27 recommendations to HUD. And what was impressive is 21 of them were accepted. So they made those changes. And fairly innocuous. It was just making sure that HUD was consistent with their language, where it was not throughout the document. And others were, they weren't consistent with, for example, the UAD. So if they've adopted UAD, then the language here doesn't make any sense. And or some of the requirements they had, quite frankly, put appraisers at even greater risk than they would have been with regards to their site visits and their observations. So when you're asked to comment on something like that and you provide feedback and that feedback is accepted, it's rather rewarding. But that's the necessary steps that we have to make.
Right, and I just wanted to point that out, that, you know, there were 27 recommendations from actually a group of appraisers coming together, and FHA adopted 21 of the 27. That's very significant. Hey, Creighton, just real quick, can you reach out to Ben or Sam? They have they need to talk to you real quickly to fine tune our audio here. Jonathan, I know you're a new association, so I'm not going to pick on you a whole lot here today, but let me just ask you, what are some of the goals that you guys have as an association? I mean, what is on the to-do list for the New York appraisers there that are members of your new association?
Sure. We have two key things that we're focused on right now. The first is that we already have an AMC regulation already written up, but it's just sitting because they're waiting for, the state is waiting for feedback from appraisers on issues relating to AMCs, and because there hasn't been an organization to really, as I think Creighton was mentioning earlier, or maybe it was John. No, I think it was John. With that you have an organization as opposed to individuals simply voicing concerns. I think that's really something that I appreciate much more now as part of this new organization than I did before, is actually connecting the dots where you have something that's basically laid out in the state saying, we're interested in this, but there's no voice on the other side. And so that's a key thing. And then the other is to push for mandatory licensing in New York State. I think that, as this whole licensing evolved, New York was one of the early states to sort of, go, they're sort of early, or one of the early ones to the table. And I think the early states generally opted for, a non-mandatory optional licensing. And there's a sort of an exponential increase in non-licensed appraisers that are doing appraisals. So that's a key issue that we want to address, right out of the gate. And we're really just sticking with those 2 points initially. We want to, bite off a little bit, make some progress, and keep expanding, because there's certainly a lot of other things that are very important. And just even listening to the two gentlemen with me, and the idea that there are other coalitions doing other things, that we, we get ideas from that and things to look at and focus on. So I think being part of a big organization is certainly a benefit in terms of connecting, but the boots on the ground that are actually, meeting with or not meeting, but sort of interacting with the legislature, we need help. We're appraisers just like everybody on this call, and we have a lot of appraisals to do as well. So any shortcuts we can get from people that have been there is tremendously helpful. Anyway, that's why I love this, and part of I love this call, because the whole thing is things that seem sort of basic. All of a sudden, when other people are in other locations are doing things that you hadn't thought of, but they're really basic, it makes so much sense. It just moves our profession forward.
Sure. And Jonathan, I'm happy to give you a dear friend of mine's contact information after Miss Teresa Walker is a little gold mine for you. She has not only helped out with the NAA, she is the kind of the executive in charge of the ATA, which is the Association of Texas Appraisers. And boy, they've done a very well job. They have over 300 members, and they're very active. They move around their state. And she could certainly give you some tips and pointers. So I'm happy to give that. Hey guys, let's take a pause.
Fantastic.
Let's take a pause real quick, and I'm going to let each one of you announce to our viewers if they would like to get in touch with you directly, if they want more information as to how to join your association. If you could give that to them. So I'll just go right down the list. We'll go backwards, John. If somebody wants more information about the NAA, they want to reach out to you directly, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
So they can do a couple of things. One, they can simply visit the NAA's website, which is naaappraisers.org. You'll get a whole host of information and the ability to just contact the organization. They can email me at president@naaappraisers.org. I'm more than happy to help them with anything related to joining the NAA or just getting some information, whatever that may be. Maybe they're a member of a state organization and they'd like their state to participate as a Board of Governors. We have a great webpage, naaappraisers.org/state organizations, where you'll find, for example, a link to Tennessee. You'll find a link to NYCAP as well. And so they can look to see if there's a state organization they should join, and or if they're a member of a state organization, why they should join the Board of Governors. I'm also a member of REAA, which is in California, COA in Arizona, and I am a member of the ATA in Texas as well. So I'm more than happy to help any of those appraisers get in touch with their state organization as well.
Great. Thank you, John. Hey, Jonathan, if somebody is interested in getting involved, and what I always encourage appraisers, guys, don't just join, don't just write a check and say, I've done my part. Get involved. I mean, we can really impact change. I mean, look what Creighton's done and that group over in Tennessee with getting significant laws passed to protect the appraiser. I mean, these are very, very significant laws that impact all the appraisers in Tennessee. It's huge. So, Jonathan, if someone wants to get involved, if they want to join your association, if they want more information about where you meet and how often you meet, how can someone find out about New York?
So the first thing is, if you're on the internet, then I'm pretty easy to find because I feel like I'm all over it all the time. But the simplest way is we have an email for NYCAP. It's NY Coalition of Appraisers @gmail.com. That's NY Coalition of Appraisers @gmail.com. If you want to reach me directly, that actually is the email that goes directly to Becky Jones, which is the founder of NYCAP. And if you want to reach me directly, you can do it a couple of ways. The easiest is my email, which is jmiller@millersamuel.com, or on Twitter, which is Jonathan Miller. So it's @Jonathan Miller, JONATHANMILLER.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. And then finally, Mr. Creighton, if someone wants to reach out and get involved with the Tennessee Appraiser Coalition, and I teach a lot of classes in Tennessee, and folks are interested. So give them some guidance on how they can not only join, but be a part of that association to impact change.
Certainly. We are trying right now to really grow our membership. We've been in a website redevelopment. We've got a new membership platform that's going to come online in the next few weeks. So apologies for an outdated website that we currently have. But we are making changes. It's part of the team that we've put together. The website for the Appraiser Coalition is www.taaappraisers.org. tnappraisercoalition.com. TN, letters TN, appraisercoalition.com. We also have a group email, which most of the appraisers in Tennessee have probably received at this point. That is tnappraisercoalition@gmail.com. So again, that's tnappraisercoalition@gmail.com. You can reach me direct if you have questions. My cell phone is always open. Can't always answer it, but that's 865-617-9708. And my personal email is ccross@braunappraisal.com. So it's ccross@braun, BRAUN, appraisal.com. Pretty much it.
Great. And let me just ask, and Creighton, we can start with you because I know TAC has a meeting and they offer a little golfing. So I'll let you talk about that. We've got several questions that many of them kind of go along the same thread. You know, for instance, Steve asked, what do state and national appraisal associations do for the individual appraiser? Tim asked, how are such groups of benefit to boots on the ground appraisers? Cooperation on boots on the ground by Ian. Yeah, so we have several questions that kind of go along the same theme there. We have one from Alan that says sometimes meeting venues are distant. So, you know, as a state association, you probably need to think about moving around the state if you're not doing so already. As a national association, we've had this conversation, John. We probably need to move around the country to have opportunities for folks all across the country. So, Creighton, tell us a little bit about the golf outing, when it occurs, and what is the purpose of the golf outing?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Brian. Our golf outing, we're in our 4th year of that, was the first week in May. It's held in Lebanon, Tennessee. We've moved it between Nashville and Lebanon, Tennessee, like you said, to move it around for appraisers. Tennessee is a long, narrow state, so it's hard to get from the Tri-Cities up close to Virginia to Memphis. So we try to parlay stuff in between. Golf tournament this year grossed over $15,000. We had 18 or 19 teams, I believe. After expenses, we were able to net some money for that. There's a very brief education offering that is also offered that morning, sponsored breakfast, things of that nature. One thing, Brian, that we've really been talking about doing is creating committees within our organization, because Tennessee is made up in 3 parts. We have the west, the middle, and the eastern part of the state. We really want to try to have a delegate, so to speak, as a part of our coalition in each section. Our board is made up of a variety of those appraisers from across the state. So what we could do is, just networking events, coffee with the appraiser, have somebody, in your area, just gather all the appraisers up and just have a meet and greet. A lot of appraisers don't know what they don't know, and they don't even know we're out there. And so if we can just be, like you said, boots on the ground, show up in these towns. I know Billy Medley spoke to the Memphis Appraisal Institute chapter. A lot of those guys didn't even know we existed. So that's, far, far deep west Tennessee. Right. I've been Johnson City, Knoxville to Nashville. So that's really what we're trying to do.
Great.
Could I just add something to that real quick?
Absolutely.
One of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years, appraisers, I remember, the theme of sort of being lone wolves operating by themselves. Sometimes, you start thinking, well, there's a lot of different organizations out there, and how do you, you keep bringing up, what does this organization do for me, boots on the ground appraiser, affect my day to day? And I think what's happened is over the last few years, especially with all the changes in the industry, is that you really have 2 types of organizations. You have more of the, the society, the institute, the branding, the designation, the professionalism. You have that sort of entity, and then you have the sort of legislation, sort of nuts and bolts, boots on the ground, specific, to a rapidly changing and legislative environment. It's almost like this coalition movement has come out of nowhere and has fulfilled a need in an industry that's going through rapid change. So I think when you look at these things, I think you really have to parse it out. And I'm being very general here, but I think you really want to parse it out into two broader groups. They're I don't want to say they're mutually exclusive, because they're not, but think about, what Creighton is doing, what John is doing. It's very nuts and bolts. It's legislation. It's how to write legislation. It's how to understand what's happening, versus being how do I make adjustments on some weird amenity that I haven't run into before. I think they're kind of different.
Very good, Jonathan. Larry Disney, a friend of mine, he was the executive director of the Kentucky Real Estate Appraisers Board. He has said for years and years that motorcycle clubs are more organized than the appraisers. and I believe that there's some truth in that. I mean, if you
have more fun, Brian.
More fun. If you look around the country and you look at all the motorcycle rallies around the country, it's phenomenal. Sure. And yet it's so difficult for us to get appraisers to come together. And I don't understand that. We're independent by nature. So we by definition, we're independent. But there is such opportunity and room for you to make a difference if we come together. There's no question about it. John, I think now's a great time. Creighton was able to give us his big shattering news for the Tennessee Appraiser, and I think I'm gonna recommend, as our webinar is nearing the corner, coming into the home stretch. And I will say, Alan asked a question. Sometimes meeting venues are distant. What can we do about that, Mr. John?
Well, Brian, I need to answer respond to Creighton's comment there that maybe the motorcycle clubs have more fun. Creighton's clearly never been in a room full of appraisers, I think, because look, in West Palm Beach, where else could you get a rubber chicken handed off from one appraisal organization to another? So that's a lot of fun, Creighton. Come on. At any rate, Brian, again, formed by a group of appraisers. They were formed at the Appraisal Summit, which you guys know takes place in Las Vegas. It was successful, or at least budding successful, in its first year or two. And the Columbia Institute then contracted with the NAA to co-host the Appraisal Summit, which means we help organize it, we help pull in the guest speakers, decide on the topics, we moderate it, all of those great things. And it's been hugely successful, and it will continue to be so. For those of you that know, CoreLogic bought the Columbia Institute, which included the Appraisal Summit. And so while we're still contractually involved and we're excited about this year's Appraisal Summit, I will tell you, we have 5 months to go and there's already 100 registrants. That is amazing.
That's great.
Working with our Board of Governors, we've recognized a couple of things. And one is what the National Association of Appraisers is and who we support. We support the boots on the ground appraisers. We support the 60 to 70% of the appraisers who belong to nothing. And that's why the NAA was formed. Bobby Crisp out of Texas, a staunch advocate for the boots on the ground appraisers, one of the founding members. He came up with the name and really based it off of NAR, which even if you're a real estate agent and not a realtor, you still benefit from the NAR's positions. Well, we also recognize that not every appraiser goes to Vegas or DC, and that's where the two primary conferences usually are. So last year, we approved an exploratory committee on creating a spring conference, something that we've looked forward to for years, at least since I've been involved in the organization. in this past week, we did agree to actually come out with a spring conference. And so I'm super excited to announce that the NAA is going to be in Nashville next spring. We are going to partner with the Tennessee Appraisers Coalition there in Creighton's group. And we are going to bring the speakers, that level of speakers, to that region and the appraisers in the state of Tennessee and the surrounding area, whether that's Mississippi and Louisiana and Georgia and North Carolina, South Carolina, etc. Success. And one of the things that we're going to do next week is we're going to be sending out to all of the state leadership groups a simple one-page application scheduling out the next 2 to 3 years. And then we're going to do that every year thereafter. And the goal is a spring conference collaboration with one of the state organizations. We're going to go East and West Coast. So imagine a scenario where we're in Tennessee this next spring, Denver the year after, and we're in New Orleans or Richmond, and we're in Phoenix or Sacramento. And we think that this is going to serve two purposes. One is to its membership, no matter where you live. The other is to support the state organizations and help them drive their membership as well. But show the boots on the ground appraisers that you have these leadership entities at the state and national level that are working together on their behalf. And we just think that the appraisers in general are going to be super excited. I know Bill Cobb put out a comment. He saw that Arizona had a state conference. We had 175 people there. I was a guest speaker. And that was a great turnout. And Bill said, well, I don't understand why we don't, why other states aren't doing that. Well, sometimes it's a matter of logistics. Sometimes it's the financial commitment that you've got to make to putting on the conference, et cetera. And some of that can be rather daunting for the local state organization. And so here we are. We're going to bring it to the states.
That's great, John.
I'm also happy to say, Brian, that Brian, sorry to interrupt, but I'd also say that in this particular instance, we did actually contract with Appraiser eLearning to be the course provider for the conference next year.
Great, great. Thanks, John. Yeah, so we're excited. I guess the announcement's official, as the president of the NAA just said it. Appraiser eLearning, the National Association of Appraisers, and the Tennessee Appraiser Coalition is going to help out with bringing a spring conference to Nashville, Tennessee. To my knowledge, Nashville's never hosted an appraisal conference. And so we're extremely excited to be a part of that. Since I had gotten involved with the NAA, one of the things we talk about regularly is that if we want to be a national association, if we want to be there for all the appraisers across the country, we need to kind of be moving around a little bit. And so that is being accomplished now. We're excited. More details are to come. John, if people want more information, or if people want to get involved, hey, Nashville's my backyard, what can I do to help out? I know you're going to be looking for sponsors. We're going to be looking for various speakers. And guys, if you haven't been to an appraisal conference, the one in Vegas is fantastic, and I'd recommend you go there. But we are certainly excited that we will be having a conference on this part of the country to provide that opportunity. But if somebody wants to jump in and has some questions or want to get involved, how would they reach out, and who would they reach out to for that, John?
I would recommend, Brian, they can reach me again at my email address, president@naaappraisers.org or info@appraisers.org. And our Teresa Walker is our administrator. She'll field those emails. Yes, we will be looking for sponsors. We are in the very early stages. We will be looking for speakers. It will be a 2-day event. It'll be really fun. And we hope to see all of the neighboring states, not just the Tennessee Appraisers Coalition, but we hope to see appraisers from OCAP and from Mississippi and from South Carolina, et cetera. And I will bring the chicken.
Yeah, you're bringing it to the South. We might want to barbecue it. So let me read a couple more questions, and we're about to wrap things up, guys. So if you have something that you want to speak on, feel free to do so. Kristen ask a question: what's happening with the DFI, Department of Appraisal? So if any of you guys have information on, she didn't say what state she's from. What's happening with the DFI, Department of Appraisal? I know that Indiana goes by that. Some other states may. Does anybody have any knowledge on that? Because I'm not sure what state she's speaking of.
That is probably an Arizona appraiser asking about the Arizona Department of Financial Institutions and the Board of Appraisal that was disbanded in Arizona last year, Brian. The ADFI has taken over. It's not much different than what you see in Illinois, for example, or California consolidating to a bureau chief. And, the Robert Charlton, the director of the ADFI, was present at that conference. There's just no appraisers on the board anymore. The board has been disbanded, so everything will go through the ADFI.
Great. Well, that's about it for this session, guys. We're at 11 o'clock, and I'm going to give an opportunity for each one of the guests to kind of make a closing statement, if you will. I first want to thank Ms. Creighton Cross for being here today, representing the Tennessee Appraiser Coalition. I would like to thank Jonathan Miller for joining us from New York to talk about their new association. And as always, my good friend John Dingman, we'd like to thank you for participating once again. I tend to keep him pretty busy. If any of the viewers have any specific topics you would like to see on a webinar, please let us know. If you have a guest that you would like to see us bring on, we're happy to do that. We hope to have Fannie Mae coming up on a live webinar over the next couple of months. We have some exciting speakers coming up, and so we hope that you look for our monthly webinar. The price is right. It's free, so it's our way to give back. So let's just run down the list. I'll give each one of the guests an opportunity to say hello once again and goodbye. And if you have any hot news you want to share, you're welcome to do that. And if you want to give your contact information one last time, feel free to. So we'll start with Creighton.
Awesome. Yeah, just want to thank you, Brian, for putting on the webinar. It's very important that we get this information out to the appraisers in our state so that we can, benefit as many people as we possibly can. The cliche, a rising tide brings all ships up. It raises all ships. That's kind of what we think, is that we can inform, we can help to educate all the appraisers in the state of Tennessee, and especially be there as the voice for them on the legislative side, just so that everybody knows that they have somebody that has their interest at heart, that are appraisers. And we're working really well communicating with other organizations to try to make sure we're all benefiting and all working together. So thank you for having me. Thanks to the other speakers as well.
Mr. Miller, Jonathan Miller, thanks again for being a willing participant. And I'll have to ask Becky if you were willing or if she kind of twisted your arm. We all love Becky, by the way.
She's great.
You're up. Go right ahead, sir.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Brian, to you and your organization. This is a great service that you're providing the appraisal community. And also to my colleagues online, John and Creighton. Really enjoyed hearing what they had to say. I think what I'd like to offer the appraisers listening and people that will listen further down the road to this is I believe that our industry is at a seminal moment, that we have a grassroots coalition effort that is across more than half of the 50 states that really sprung from the need to, get involved in the nuts and bolts of the, legislation that affects our everyday lives. And I really, there's been a lot of questions about how to get involved, and really all you have to do is reach out to the people on this webinar and just ask. There is no, sort of magic button to press. It's really just I think the most important thing you can do is just be aware of what's going on in the state around you. And there's a lot of information out there now. There's more and more, and it's very exciting. It's a very exciting time, and I don't want our industry to let this moment in time pass us by. And the way that you do that is you get involved and get informed. And this webinar is certainly one of those vehicles.
Thanks, Jonathan. Again, I appreciate you coming on short notice, by the way. We wish you much success with organizing the appraisers in New York. A lot of appraisers, I hear the common thread is, I'm busy. I'm so busy. I don't have time to get involved. And my response to that is, we're all busy. But think if a new regulation or a new requirement comes down that is just really a silly requirement, and now you have to do that. Now you've got more work. Now you're going to be even busier. So if you take a stance before that came online, maybe you could make a difference on these changes that impact your daily routine as an appraiser.
Also too, Brian, just to interject, is that the last decade for the appraisal industry has been a case study in appraisers being blindsided, right? So do you want that to continue? And, most appraisers are, informed about, how to do certain things with their appraisals. But what about just being aware of where your industry is going and what changes are on the horizon, and not getting it piecemeal, just being involved. And it literally is just a few minutes a day. It's not a massive separation from you and your practice. I really don't think it's that hard to do. You just have to do it like the Nike commercials used to say, just do it.
I like it. Thank you, Jonathan. And finally, Mr. John, back to you. I'll give you a closing statement.
Well, Brian, thank you for having me and the whole team of Appraiser e-learning. I love you guys, and I'm just honored and privileged to be able to sit here and spend an hour with Jonathan and Creighton, two guys that I have an immense amount of respect for, and Jackie for starting NYCAP. It's a big task, but the appraisers will be excited there. And really kudos to Creighton for getting some stuff done in Tennessee. I think it gives some hope for and some reinvigoration for some of the other state associations to do some things. You look at the state organizations, some of them were founded on a single principle, and that may have been licensing way back in 91. It may have been because of the HVCC and AMC laws, but you are seeing more of those organizations, while they may have taken a step back once their initial effort was accomplished. They are, as Jonathan put it, coming back together to really drive some new issues to benefit our profession. So kudos to everybody that's out there, all of the volunteers at the state level, all of the volunteers at the national level. And if you're not a member of something, I'm just going to implore you to join. And again, I said NAAappraisers.org/state organizations. It's an interactive map there. And check out the website for the state organization that's closest to you, and consider joining them. If you want to join the NAA, we would love to have you. I think we're one of the few, RICS being the other national organizations that is growing. We're running a discount. It's rather well received on social media. Want to join? It's $50 off through Memorial Day, and all you have to do is join and enter the discount code MEM$50, and your activation fee will be waived. So I'm just super excited about the state organizations that are doing the right thing. Colorado just had some great progress with allowing the trainees to sign on the left. Please check with your own states, though, on what you're allowed to do there, but that's a huge accomplishment. And again, the rest of the state organizations for tackling the issues that are important to them as well. So really appreciate the time, Brian.
Very good. Well, again, I'd like to thank all my guests. I want to close by saying we got a message from Bill. Bill is in Idaho. Thank you for watching, Bill. And Bill sends a message and says, I can't wait to come to Nashville. So, Bill, we're excited that you're going to come to the Nashville conference that we're going to be having. I'd like to thank all our guests, Creighton, Jonathan, and John. I'd like to thank all of our viewers. If you've got a friend that would have liked to have seen this webinar and wasn't able to participate, it is being recorded. It will be available on our website for viewing at a later time. And I just want to say one additional thing. While we encourage appraisers to get together both on the local level as well as the national level, we also encourage you to be affiliated or be members and be involved with some of the other organizations. We're not trying to say, you know, dump that one and go here or go there. Find an association or organization that's right for you. Join that association, get involved. But these are nonprofit organizations. TAC, Kentucky's got an association. Illinois has a huge association. Texas, as we mentioned earlier, has a huge association. I believe Georgia has a thriving organization. My friend down in Mississippi got an organization started a few years ago, and they're coming together. And then the National Association is looking out for the interest of all appraisers. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, maybe you don't fully understand their mission statements, I recommend that you reach out to your respected states as well as the National Association. And before you make a decision, before you turn down your nose or think something incorrectly, investigate, gather those findings, and then make an informed decision. I'm Brian Reynolds with Appraiser eLearning. Again, I'd like to thank all my guests and thank you guys for watching. Have a great day and go appraise something. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.